Will there be a US spot Ethereum ETF approved in 2023? Hi everyone, and welcome back to our channel. As the world is becoming increasingly complex, at Foresight Bureau we attempt to find ways to make better predictions in areas such as finance, technology, business, geopolitics, and more. Our approach involves aggregating predictions from multiple sources so that we can all gain strategic foresight in order to make better predictions that will hopefully lead to superior decision-making. Before we dive in, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and clicking the bell icon to be notified whenever we release new videos. Today, we're going to explore predictions relating to the likelihood of the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC for short, approving a spot Ethereum exchange-traded fund, or ETF, by the end of this year. The ETF will enable conventional retail investors straightforward exposure to this emergent digital asset by trading it on a public stock exchange. The primary benefit of an ETF will be that it'll enable investors to easily invest in Ethereum without the hassle of buying and storing it on a digital wallet. Some people prefer to purchase and store it themselves, but that involves needing to deal with crypto exchanges and wallets, which can be time-consuming, inconvenient, and potentially stressful. A spot ETF is not to be confused with a futures ETF. The former is a type of fund that buys, sells, and stores the digital asset on behalf of the investor. A futures ETF invests in futures contracts, which are agreements to buy or sell an asset at a specified price on a specified date, so the asset itself is never actually purchased. An SEC-approved Ethereum ETF would constitute a watershed moment for increased mainstream and institutional adoption of cryptocurrencies. By providing a regulated on-ramp for retail investors to gain price exposure to Ethereum, an ETF could rapidly multiply investment flows. The resulting supply-demand imbalance would likely apply significant appreciation pressure on the price of Ethereum. Now that we've provided some context, let's move on to predicting if a spot Ethereum ETF might be approved in 2023. As repeatedly stated, we believe the best way to make predictions is to rely on the wisdom of the crowd. However, we decided to put our money where our mouth is and make our own prediction that will be added to the aggregated average. So here goes. Based on all available information at the time of making this video, we think the odds are only slightly higher than 50%. Our rationale is as follows. Ethereum's recent migration to a proof-of-stake consensus model has substantially reduced its environmental footprint. This eliminates a monumental objection continually raised by the SEC against approving a Bitcoin ETF, since mining Bitcoin still requires immense energy consumption. Another reason to be bullish is that the SEC chairman might be warming to the idea of allowing crypto-based investment vehicles to trade on public stock exchanges if the recent flurry of approvals for Bitcoin futures ETFs is anything to go by. His change in sentiment is probably due to the fact that major financial institutions, including Fidelity Investments and BlackRock, have all publicly advocated for SEC approval of cryptocurrency ETFs. Their significant lobbying influence and reputations as stalwarts of traditional finance have undoubtedly provided regulators with the reassurance they require to endorse crypto ETFs. Furthermore, Ethereum has proven that it has real-world utility underpinning demand for its native token ETH, and that separates it from many other cryptocurrencies. The Ethereum network now powers an entire ecosystem. Examples include not only decentralized finance, but also the ability to mint non-fungible tokens, otherwise known as NFTs, to enshrine immutable property rights, particularly useful in the context of the metaverse and gaming. It is also becoming widely used for all kinds of business and enterprise applications, including logistics, invoice tracking, and identity management. This provides huge credibility to Ethereum as a functional asset that has intrinsic value. On the technical analysis front, Ethereum appears to be solidifying into the early stages of a long-term bull market. This presents very favorable risk-reward scenarios for long-term investors if additional buying pressure from an ETF approval provides rocket fuel for the uptrend. Our rationale for delay or denial is that there are still many risks and uncertainties in the crypto space that could slow or even prevent SEC endorsement. It's important to remember that Ether has still not officially been classified as a registered security, so the SEC will remain cautious about permitting direct retail exposure without additional investor safeguards. Also, scams, hacking incidents, fraud, and rampant market manipulation continue to raise red flags about consumer protection. More stringent oversight and guardrails would likely be prerequisites before the SEC feels comfortable greenlighting a spot Ethereum ETF. Furthermore, Ethereum faces legitimate scaling challenges as network congestion has pushed transaction fees ever higher. Competitive threats from rival smart contract networks like Solana and Cardano may challenge Ethereum's dominant position. However, congestion concerns are being alleviated with the introduction of Layer 2 solutions such as Polygon, Arbitrum, Optimism, StarkX, and ZK Sync. Other factors that could slow the SEC's decision are geopolitical. For example, conflicts including Russia's invasion of Ukraine have introduced new uncertainties that have led to the U.S. administration clamping down on the use of cryptocurrency to circumvent Western sanctions. This unstable macro backdrop may warrant a wait-and-see regulatory approach. Conversely, public fascination with cryptocurrencies and the fact that major firms across a growing number of industries are embracing blockchain technology appears to be turning the tide in favor of mainstream crypto adoption. Still, measured oversight remains judicious given the market risks posed by this new asset class. In conclusion, such an ETF would represent a watershed moment for increased mainstream and institutional adoption of cryptocurrency. But risks and uncertainties inherent to these markets warrant thoughtful deliberation as it involves a difficult balancing act between encouraging financial innovation and preventing reckless speculation. Moving on from our analysis, let's now check out some prediction platforms. We recently posted this question on Metaculus, so only a few predictions have so far been shared by the community. But at the time of making this video, here are the results. It appears that there's currently very little consensus between the different platforms, which is interesting. Firstly, Metaculus with 45%, then Manifold with 82%, and finally Polymarket with 87%. Let's now ask ChatGPT.
Cryptocurrency market and the SEC's historical cautious approach toward crypto-related financial products. The likelihood of a spot Ethereum ETF being approved by the SEC in 2023 is in the range of 30% to 40% based on the conditions and progress made in addressing regulatory concerns and market maturity up to my last knowledge update. Please note that this is a rough estimate, and actual outcomes can vary widely depending on the specific developments and regulatory changes that occur in the intervening period.
Now let's ask Bard.
There's a 60% likelihood of a spot Ethereum ETF being approved in the USA by the SEC in 2023. The SEC has been taking a more open approach to cryptocurrencies in recent years, and I believe that it is likely to approve a spot Ethereum ETF in the near future. However, there are still some risks that could delay or prevent approval, such as concerns about the security of Ethereum or the public interest.
Finally, let's ask Claude.
There's a 65% probability of an Ethereum ETF becoming accessible on a public stock exchange receiving SEC approval by Q3 2023. This prediction was based on careful evaluation of the current SEC posture toward cryptocurrencies, legislative momentum, statements made by key officials like Chairman Gary Gensler, and prevailing market trends.
Now let's calculate an aggregated unweighted average. Foresight Bureau 55%, Metaculus 45%, Manifold 82%, Polymarket 87%, ChatGPT 35%, Bard 60%, and Claude 65%, which gives us an aggregated average of 61%. We'd be very grateful if you would take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel to get notified of future prediction analysis. Please note that these predictions are subject to change on a continuous basis, so keep checking our socials for the latest results. And that wraps up our analysis of the probability that the SEC will approve a spot Ethereum ETF by the end of 2023. In summary, while risks and concerns endure, momentum appears to be shifting toward mainstream cryptocurrency adoption. The advent of an Ethereum ETF would signal an inflection point in this financial evolution. Let us know what you think. Leave your comment below and tell us if and when you think a spot Ethereum ETF will be approved. Disclaimer: this video is intended for entertainment purposes only. We do not guarantee the accuracy or completeness of the information published. We are not responsible for any losses or damages that may arise. Nothing should be interpreted as investment or financial advice.